I never realized how dark it could get with zero light pollution. It was like a pitch-black blanket covered everything that should have been in sight. I could barely make out the shadows of objects right in front of me. With nothing to do in this blinding darkness, I settled onto the sleeping bag strewn across the floor of the enormous foreign students' imbar house tent. While at times the imbar housed as many as 7 people, now no other students were here. I was alone. My sleep came in fits and bursts. Exhaustion battled the uncomfortableness of sleeping on a concrete floor. I was asleep 1 minute, awake the next, and then asleep again. Suddenly, my eyes snapped open. In the darkness, I saw a man standing in the corner, leaning on the back wall as if he were waiting for me. I couldn't make out his exact figure except that he was skinny, with a turban and a thin beard. I briefly considered whether I was still asleep, but no, I was definitely awake. This was no doubt my imbar that I saw around me. This was no doubt the stiff concrete floor that I felt underneath me. I fixed my eyes on this man's shadowy figure. He seemed to notice I was looking because he acknowledged my stare with a curt nod, then immediately began walking over. I couldn't move. I was too paralyzed by fear to do anything more than just lay there and watch as he came closer, closer. Then as soon as he reached the edge of my sleeping bag, he passed right around and straight out the tent. This was ridiculous. I had been warned that the Mauritanian villagers don't have much of a sense of privacy and walk into your tent without asking. But this, to barge into my tent in the middle of the night, then stroll out without saying a word, no sir, this was too much. I grabbed the flashlight beside me, beamed it onto the man just as he was leaving, and hot on his tail, ran out to confront him. This creepster would not get away with his intrusion. Now outside, I swung around my light, searching for the direction he went off to. Left, right, straight ahead. Again and again I swung my light around. But there was no one there. No man, not even a trace. Confused and still exhausted, I went back to sleep mumbling the Ayatul Kursi. The next day was a blur of studying, reading, eating, and daydreaming about a sweet, cold can of Coca-Cola that would never come. And before I knew it, the sun was setting once again. This time as night inched closer, it brought with it a feeling of extreme dread. I thought of confiding in someone about what I had seen the night before, but the Mauritanians had already deemed me not enough of a man, and I wasn't going to ruin my image further by running over and crying about gin. So, I tried the only other strategy one could think of: stay awake the whole night. Needless to say, that strategy didn't work. Again, exhaustion from the extreme heat overcame me, and I laid down to sleep. Again, my sleep was restless. 1 minute I was awake, the next minute dreaming a terrible dream, and then awake again. Towering over me, I could make out the figure of someone I knew and disliked very, very much. But the situation didn't make any sense. This person I so disliked was supposed to be halfway across the world in America, but here they were standing over my head in a tiny remote village in Mauritania. I stared up in shock. He glowered down at me. I grabbed my book light from beside me and shined it on his face, hoping it would repel him. Didn't. Unfazed, he continued staring down a menacing stare. I leapt up from my sleeping bag. Stumbling backwards, I turned my light on him, ready for whatever confrontation was necessary. If he pursued me to this middle-of-nowhere village at this ungodly hour, then I couldn't just let him go.
But there was no confrontation? Whoever was standing right over me 1 second ago had vanished into thin air. More frightened than I'd ever been in my life, I looked longingly in the direction of Morabit's house where I'd stayed the first night in Tuwaymarat. It would be so much more comfortable to stay there, sleeping close to the sheikh and his family. Surely no jinn would dare come there. But I held back. I must not seem like a scaredy cat, I told myself. I must not seem afraid.